Well, next we're going to turn our attention to Manchester City. Rob, you spent some time with Joško Gvardiol at City's training ground. Here he is talking before they played Aston Villa.
We've spoken to Pep a lot this year, and some of the things he said has suggested that maybe people are underestimating this City side. You know, people want to talk about Arsenal and Liverpool a bit, but quietly City are kind of, winning games and going on a run. Does it feel in the dressing room that maybe you're going under the radar a bit, that people are underestimating what this group is capable of a little bit?
I would say at the beginning of the season you could feel it. You could feel it. It was just about Liverpool and Arsenal. But yeah, I mean, after the run we have now, I think everyone is getting aware again that we are still here. That we're not just gonna give up, because obviously the season is long. So. Lots of games to play, and I think it's gonna be an interesting season. I think each season is even more and more interesting and harder. Every opponent every team you face, especially away. If you play away, it's really tough. And as I said, I think it's gonna be an interesting season.
I guess in the dressing room, if you're winning games, but people aren't talking about you and want to focus on other teams, that's quite good for the players, right? You're quite happy just to no noise, just carry on, win.
You're right, yeah. But also, you get like it motivates you when when you see that no one talks about you. They're all talking about Arsenal, and Liverpool, which is normal, And they're good teams, and they're doing as well. They're doing good as well. So yeah, but we will see.
Well, Rob, how did you find him?
Well, in terms of like the interview, he's a lovely bloke. Obviously doesn't mean much, but you can tell by when guys come into the interview room and want to shake your hand and chat while they're getting kind of mic'd up. He's a really good talker. Obviously still quite young. It's easy to forget that he's still only 23. Seems like he's been around for forever after doing what he did at RB Leipzig and joining City as a 21-year-old. But I did ask him, like, are you feeling like you're becoming more confident, more of a kind of a leader in the dressing room now? You've been here for a while, and he said no, which I thought was quite endearing, that he still feels himself kind of one of the young ones, the kids in the dressing room. But I think you can see in the interview clip that was just played there that he's obviously a confident guy. He feels like he can kind of come out with these comments on the title race and teams like Liverpool and Arsenal. Obviously, he was speaking before the Villa game. They had a setback against Villa. But I actually think that what he was saying is probably true, that there does feel like there's been a kind of a focus on Arsenal and Liverpool a little bit, where City, before that Villa game, had gone 9 unbeaten. And it did feel like, maybe for the reporters who deal with City day to day, that maybe that they were flying under the radar a little bit, and maybe they weren't getting the credit that they deserved, and they were genuinely one of the title challengers this year.
Well, he said that nobody's talking about them. We're going to talk about them now, but perhaps not in the way that he would have liked. I mean, obviously they lost by a single goal, a tight game. Haaland misses a great chance. They could have had a penalty. They had a goal ruled out for a correct but tight offside call right at the end. Sort of fine margins went against them. But are there more underlying problems that this result may be exposed?
Well, I don't think that Guardiola and Gvardiol will be that panicked by what happened at Villa. They don't win at Villa. They haven't won since 2021. It's just a bogey ground for them, really. They lost there last year, and Pep said that game that they were just a mess. It was in the middle of all the problems they were having with injuries. He said that the body language was awful, didn't create anything, didn't run, didn't work. One of the real low points of last season. What happened at Villa Park on Sunday, I don't think was that. I think it was a tight game decided by a fine margin, and City were on the wrong end of it. So I don't think he'll be too panicked. The one thing that he has raised in the last couple of weeks is he feels that they're over-reliant on Erling Haaland. Haaland scored 11 Premier League goals. No other City player has got more than one, which is an issue. And in fairness to Guardiola, he raised it after the Everton game when Haaland scored twice. And it would be easy to raise it after the Villa game where you've lost, but he raised it after a game that they'd won and said, Haaland scored twice, we've won 2-0, that's great, but other guys need to step up. And I think the game against Villa showed that if an opposition team find a way to keep Haaland quiet and crowd him out and just don't give him any kind of space, I think he got one half chance in the first half, but beyond that there wasn't an awful lot, that you need the likes of Foden, Doku, Bernardo, Savinho, all these guys to be chipping in with 5-10 goals each. Otherwise, there are going to be games where Haaland just doesn't get that freedom and can't score, and you can't lose those games 1-0 because you haven't been able to get the ball to your main man.
But is this a systemic problem though? Isn't this because the team's set up for everything to go through Haaland? That actually it's only right that he has 11 goals, because everything is set up to go through.
Yeah, well, there is an element of that, and I suppose Pep would deny that if you put that question to him. Is everything designed to go through Haaland? He would say no. But I kind of think sometimes watching City that just in terms of the mentality of the City players, if you've got a guy who's that prolific in front of goal, then surely it's only a natural thing to be constantly looking for the guy that can score goals. And maybe that does take the responsibility to score goals away from Doku and Foden. Foden is a big one. A couple of seasons ago, he was the Premier League's best player and scored, I think, did he get close to 20 Premier League goals, which is just unbelievable for an attacking midfielder. And he has got back to a little bit of form this year, but last season was just looked a shadow of the player that he was the year before. I just think that they need to find a different way to win games, and at the moment they aren't. And it doesn't really matter because Haaland is going to win you a lot of games, but there are going to be occasions where you just can't do it.
When we talk about Chelsea, we talk about the effect that the Club World Cup had on them. Now, obviously, they went all the way and won it. City didn't, but they were out there. They experienced those conditions. They obviously had their pre-season interrupted as a result. How much of a factor do you think that is?
Again, Guardiola would tell you not, but it has to be because the teams that were playing in the summer, the conditions were brutal. We were both there and saw what they were going through. Obviously, Chelsea went a lot further than City, and City did get quite a long break in the end. So it has to have an impact. I also think that City, they've lost an awful lot of players over the last 12 months. There's an awful lot of experience that's been drained from that dressing room. Ederson, Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne, Akanji, Kyle Walker. The list kind of goes on, and they are, again, it seems strange to say that about a City team that have been so successful so recently, but they do feel like they're in a little bit of transition, and that maybe the aura or the invincibility that they had a couple of years ago has disappeared, and they're not winning as many games. Alex Ferguson used to say about United that he used to see his team win games in the tunnel because they were so good, and I think that to a certain extent City did that under Pep when they were winning 4 in a row, and I think that's gone a little bit, and I think that kind of frailty combined with the experience that's been drained away, when you put those two things together, it's a big thing to deal with. And I think City are still trying to learn about how to deal with that, particularly when you're going to go to really, really tough places like Villa Park. And I mean, just in terms of you covering Arsenal, if you were looking for a title challenger right now, the one that's going to run Arsenal the closest, are you looking at City as that team, or do you still think it's going to be Liverpool or someone else from the pack?
Well, I find myself changing my mind about this. If you'd asked me that in August, I'd have said Liverpool. I thought Liverpool would retain the title. That looks a long shot already now. I suspect that if you were to ask Mikel Arteta that question, he would, because of course of his links to City, having worked there, having still enjoying a very close relationship with Pep, I think he would say City, because they still, although they're not playing with the same authority that they have done, history tells you that club, and actually we've just seen it really with the 9 games. Yeah. They're the type of team that if no one's really talking about them or they're not sort of tearing up trees, they've suddenly, you sort of look at their results and you go, oh, they've actually won 10 in a row here, or 8 in a row, or they're unbeaten for 2 months, and they can accumulate. I don't think there's a guarantee that Arsenal can do that. At the moment, you'd have to say Liverpool look a long way from having that consistency. Whereas there's something about City, and I suppose you are relying, a lot on their history to form this opinion, not necessarily what you're seeing with your naked eye week to week, but they are probably the only team that football heritage would tell you that they can put together a run that would cause Arsenal some problems.
So Pep's been saying for a few weeks now that all he wants to do in the first part of the season is to be in and around it. The title, he says, isn't won in October and November. So he wants to get to January and wants to be within touching distance of whoever's top, Arsenal probably, or whoever might be top. and then you kind of see. I'm just looking at their fixture list now. City, they've got Bournemouth, Liverpool, and Newcastle all in November. Bournemouth and Liverpool are at home. Newcastle are away. The first game back after the international break, which is obviously always a tough one. We're probably going to find out, aren't we, in November, whether this City team are genuine title challengers or part of the pack.
Yeah, in more ways than one, because there's what's going on the field, and then there's the 115 charges verdict, which no one knows for certain when it's going to be. I have heard a little bit of chat that it might be November, which is no guarantee it will be, because this seems to have been kicked down the road so many times. But, you're talking about there, Pep saying, he just wants to be in and around it. Well, they could have a 20-point deduction to deal with. That could end their title challenge before it's even started. And what on earth is going to happen then? We have no idea, by the way. Of course, City deny all the charges. We don't know whether it's going to be points or a fine or both or neither. But you must, you're obviously up there a fair bit and have obviously just spoken to Gvardiol. Do you get a sense from around the place that this is hanging over the club?
I think so now. Obviously they are strenuously denying all of this stuff and have done since the minute that it came out, the various charges from UEFA and the Premier League and that kind of thing. But I think they've reached a point now where they just want this to be over, because it's become tiring for everyone. I think it's become tiring for City. It's become tiring for the rest of the Premier League. I think fans want to know either way what's happening with it. I just don't think it's healthy if it carries on, and it's dragged on far too long, even now. And even if it was to come in November, in the international break in November, even that would be too long. But it does need to be out in the open sooner rather than later. I think that it'll be interesting to see what the verdict is and what impact that has on City on the pitch. Beyond any kind of points deduction, but for the next, whenever it comes, for the next few months, it'll dominate everything. It'll dominate Pep Guardiola's press conferences. The players who stop in mix zones won't be asked about, performances on the pitch. They'll be asked about the impact of whatever's happened on the club. If there is a big points deduction, are you staying? Are you leaving? What do you feel? Like, how do you kind of cope with this? The fallout from this could be absolutely monumental. And as I say, it is important to kind of caveat that with, we've got no idea which way it's going to go. Whether City are even going to get found guilty or not. But I just think the fallout, because it's been such a long-running saga and it's become this huge kind of thing now that the Premier League has had to deal with, I think that the fallout in terms of the Guardiola himself and also the players, how they cope with that, may play quite an important role in whether they get close to winning the title or not.
Yeah. And again, it lends itself, to circle back to end where we started, really, it's never going to get better than this for Arsenal. It does feel as though the stars have aligned for them. If City are hit with any sort of punishment, the impact that will have, because of course the other things that could happen, there could be a transfer embargo, some sort of transfer ban, which means obviously they wouldn't be able to strengthen in January. As you say, the repercussions for a club, if they're hit hard, is impossible to sort of overstate. And you combine that with what's happening at Liverpool, and I don't want to sort of entirely dismiss Tottenham, who are obviously up there, and Bournemouth have had a great start, and obviously Manchester United are back and now in the title race, as you confirmed on this podcast earlier.
Easy.
But you sort of think, well, the general environment leads you to think that this is the best chance that Arsenal have maybe had in 22 years to win the league.
Well, that's all we've got time for on the Football Reporters for this week. Join us again next time.